Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 155, Love, the Totodile style. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having arrived at a lake, and Misty letting out all of her water Pokemon so that they can swim, including Psyduck, until she remembers that Psyduck can't swim, so she has to pull it out of the lake before it drowns. Upon seeing how much fun Misty's Poliwhirl, Staryu, and Goldeen were having, Ash decides to let his Totodile get in on the fun and sends him out as well, and he then spots a couple of Magikarp in the lake, and proceeds to lift them up with his water gun, leading Misty to remark that, although she was still glad that she had Poliwhirl, she did kinda wish she had Totodile now, as it seemed pretty talented. Ash and the gang then decide to have some lunch, with Brock cooking some soup, as all the Pokemon were still playing. As Totodile was floating on its back in the water, it then spotted an Azumarill on a close-by coastline, and was immediately in love with it, being especially enamored by its beautiful singing. Totodile wanted to impress the female Azumarill, so it decided to go up to her and try doing its dancing that it always did, and also made a water gun in the shape of a heart, but all of its efforts were in vain, as Azumarill coldly rejected it by shooting it with a water gun. Totodile was unable to accept the rejection, however, so when Azumarill trudged away, Totodile still followed. As Ash and the gang were finally getting to enjoy that soup that Brock was cooking, however, they were suddenly distracted when they spotted a Golduck in the bushes. With Golduck being Misty's favorite Pokemon, she instantly wanted to catch it, but Brock told her to hold off, explaining that it looked like the Golduck was busy looking for something, and he wanted to find out what it was. Suddenly, a woman then popped out of the bushes, and also seemed to be looking for something, but before Ash could question what it was, Brock immediately became enamored by the woman as usual, and tried to flirt with her, and introduced himself as a super skilled Pokemon breeder. Obviously, that wasn't really the case. I mean, he was more a breeder in training, but he had to gas himself up, but anyways, this led Misty to drag him off. This finally allowed Ash, after apologizing for Brock's simping, to ask the girl what she was looking for, to which the woman introduced herself as Trixie, and let out her Pidgey from its Pokeball, explaining that she was using her Golduck and Pidgey to help her find her lost Azumarill. I wonder if this is the Azumarill that Totodile spotted. Well, we didn't have to wonder for long, as immediately after Trixie revealed who she was looking for, Azumarill showed up, and hid behind Trixie's legs, indicating that she was nervous about something. But Ash and the gang didn't notice this. It'll come into play at the end of the episode, though, you'll see. Ash instantly used his Pokedex on Azumarill to get more information, which revealed to him that Azumarill was the evolved form of Marill, and it could hear for great distances, even underwater. Just then, it was revealed that Totodile was still trailing Marill, and was still as in love with it, as it proceeded to try and blow it kisses. However, Marill rejected it once again, giving Brock a run for his money on how many times he had been rejected. Nah, just kidding, Brock's been rejected way more times. Anyways, after this whole ordeal, Trixie then invited Ash and the gang to come to one of her circus shows, giving them a free ticket if they helped her set up her show. Ash and the gang accepted the offer, and headed to her circus tent, where Trixie explained that she's always enjoyed the circus, and taught her Pokemon to do tricks, stating that they were usually the main acts of her shows. Especially her Azumarill, although she acknowledged that Azumarill hadn't really been doing many tricks lately, as it had been refusing to listen to her, just as it was refusing to listen to her right now, as it chilled out on a lawn chair with some sunglasses, drinking some orange juice, as opposed to helping out. Trixie noted that Azumarill's disobedience had started around the same time that Golduck joined her team. She assumed it could have been jealousy, but she wasn't sure. While Trixie was explaining all this shit to Ash and Misty, Brock was the one who was actually helping with her show, likely wanting to impress her. However, Totodile was also helping, as it set up a little inflatable pool that Trixie requested she might need for the show. Totodile, still enamored by the Azumarill, as you may expect, then proceeded to pick Azumarill up and romantically drop her in the pool. Kind of like a romantic dance type of thing. Like, you know, when you, like, drop someone down when you're dancing, that type of shit? Yeah, picture something like that. The Azumarill, though, did not take this as a romantic dance gesture, and promptly shot Totodile with a water gun straight to the face, yet again. Ash questioned Misty why Totodile was acting so strange, trying to throw the Azumarill in the pool when he hadn't even ordered it to, leading Misty to just laugh at how immature Ash was, due to the fact that he didn't know that Totodile was in love, which was glaringly obvious, especially to Brock, who encouraged Totodile to keep trying to pursue his love, even though he kept being rejected. Brock, don't teach Totodile your ways, man. That'll only work out terribly. If there's anyone you don't want advice from regarding love, it was Brock. Anyways, immediately after this, the circus show was then ready to begin as the crowd filed in, and Ash and the gang watched with their free tickets. First up, Trixie did a magic show of her own, where she made her Pidgey, followed by a Marill, appear out of a hat. It was then Azumarill's turn, who came on stage and started juggling colored balls with her water gun, which impressed the audience immensely. When Totodile saw Azumarill doing her act, he wanted to impress her by doing an act of his own, so he went up on stage, getting away from Ash, and proceeded to juggle some fruit with his water gun, which he had received from the audience. Despite Totodile's intentions, this only pissed Azumarill off, as the spotlight was now being taken away from her and onto Totodile, so she stormed off the stage, which led Totodile to desperately run off after her, as Ash climbed up on stage, trying to reclaim Totodile. Unfortunately, Ash couldn't focus on Totodile, as due to him leaving, that meant that the fruit that he was holding up with his water gun was about to fall, and if it did, then it would ruin the show, so Ash had to step in and try his best to juggle all the fruit, which the audience didn't even realize was originally not part of the plan. Not wanting to see Trixie's show be put at risk anymore, Brock decided that he needed to do something to help Totodile so it would stop running off after Azumarill, so he was going to teach him how to get Azumarill's affection, so that he would no longer have to chase after her, and Azumarill would come to him willingly. Would Brock actually be able to successfully help someone else with love when he was clueless about it? Let's find out. But first, we have a scene from Team Rocket, who were spying on Ash and the gang from behind the stage's curtain, coming up with a plan to steal both Azumarill and Pikachu, plotting to use Azumarill's ability to do circus tricks to start their own traveling circus and get rich from it. As for Pikachu, they figured that he could just be Azumarill's assistant. Meowth, realizing that Totodile would get immensely pissed if they stole Azumarill though, was against this plan as he didn't want to get absolutely beat to shit by the Totodile, like it happened a couple episodes ago. Meanwhile, the show had now come to a close, and Ash apologized for all the damage that his Totodile going haywire had caused to it. Trixie forgave them, especially since Ash did try his best to help by catching all the fruit. Just then, Misty came up and questioned where Brock had went off to, noticing that he was gone. Well, Misty, Brock was out doing exactly as he said he was going to do, help Totodile win over Azumarill, and he planned to do this by giving Totodile some of his Pokemon treats and telling him to give them to Azumarill as a gift. I don't know, Brock, I actually have to hand it to you. That's a pretty good plan. Girls love gifts. But unfortunately, this still didn't work, as Totodile got rejected yet again, as Brock watched surprise from the bushes. He failed. God damn it. To make matters worse, Annette then dropped down out of nowhere and captured Azumarill and started to drag her away, leading Totodile to chase after her, still not accepting rejection and not wanting anything bad to happen to her. This led Brock to panic even more, and he started to scream, which alerted Ash and Misty, who came running out from the circus tent. They watch as Totodile tries to grab Azumarill's net, but it's only pulled further away, causing him to miss when he jumps for it, and then it's pulled up into the air by Team Rocket's Meowth balloon, revealing Team Rocket to be responsible. Surprise, surprise. They then reveal themselves in their balloon and do their motto, stating their plan to capture Pikachu and Azumarill. As Jessie demanded that Ash give over Pikachu, Ash decided to have his Pikachu use Thunderbolt immediately instead of waiting like he usually did. But unfortunately, before Pikachu could use Thunderbolt, Meowth used a remote control to deploy an electric-proof device and capture Pikachu inside, while he was up in the air trying to perform his Thunderbolt, which therefore rendered his Thunderbolt useless. Having both Pikachu and Azumarill in their grasp, Team Rocket proceeded to make their getaway by James sending out his Weezing and having it use Smokescreen to blind Ash and the gang. However, Totodile fought through the blindness and chased after the Meowth balloon anyways. Totodile then spotted Azumarill's pink ribbon, which she had dropped while trying to escape from the net, and immediately picked it up, vowing to return it to her. Unfortunately, Team Rocket began to get too far away as Totodile ran out of land to chase on, now being confronted by a huge lake, but Totodile was still determined, so it simply hopped in the lake and continued to chase after Team Rocket through swimming, despite Ash and Brock telling it to come back. Why were you telling him to come back, Brock? I thought you wanted him to chase after its love, and he was doing that. Anyways, although Ash and the gang wanted to follow Totodile immediately, they decided that it was best that they told Trixie what was going on, as they went back to her circus tent and informed her that Azumarill and Totodile were gone. As they all pondered where Team Rocket could have ran off to, Misty suggested that they may have been hiding on the forest at the other side of the lake, expecting that Ash and the gang wouldn't follow them across the lake. So, Trixie then revealed that there was a path around the lake, and they headed that way to the forest, which was indeed where Team Rocket was located. More specifically, they were in a log cabin in the forest. I don't know how many fucking cabins they had if they were so broke. Anyways, with Azumarill now in their possession, they were trying to get it to do tricks for their own circus show, such as juggling tricks and rope tricks. However, Azumarill refused, which led Team Rocket to want to use force to force the Azumarill to do the tricks, so essentially they wanted to beat it the fuck up. But thankfully, Meowth and Wobbuffet, who had popped out of its Pokeball, stood up for their fellow Pokemon, stating that Team Rocket shouldn't abuse it, and Meowth instead suggested that they try and bribe the Azumarill with a big meal. So they tried that, but Azumarill still refused. So, even Meowth had accepted that Team Rocket had to use force at this point, as Jessie recalled Wobbuffet into his Pokeball. However, right before Jessie and James could attack, Totodile then showed up, having finally caught up with them, and used a water gun to launch their cabin door and the table that Azumarill was meant to eat on right at them. This water gun only knocked down Team Rocket for a second though, as Meowth quickly got back up and threw a muzzle on Totodile so it couldn't use water gun anymore, and then tied him up, fully capturing him alongside Pikachu and Azumarill. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang, along with Trixie and her Golduck and Pidgey, had arrived in the forest to start looking for Azumarill and Pikachu, and Totodile for that matter, but as they searched, they couldn't find anything, and eventually the sun started to set, so they decided to return for the night back to the circus. They were reluctant, but there was nothing they could do. Meanwhile, later at night, Team Rocket was fast asleep, having put Pikachu, Azumarill, and Totodile all in cages, with Pikachu still in his electric cage. Azumarill began to cry, but thankfully, Totodile swooped in and returned its pink ribbon that it had dropped, just like it had promised to do. This already began to cheer Azumarill up, but Totodile still tried further by doing his dance moves, even though that didn't work before. But it seemed to work now, as Azumarill stopped crying, much to Pikachu's delight, as he was likely getting annoyed by all the crying. But let's go, Totodile. You actually successfully got Azumarill. I hope. I mean, after you basically helped her get back her favorite thing ever, she better give you some reward. By morning, Ash and the gang had resumed their search, and Trixie sent out her Pidgey to go looking for the Meowth balloon. As for Team Rocket, they were about to take off in the Meowth balloon, leaving their cabin, deciding to simply give the 3 Pokemon to Giovanni for a promotion, as opposed to their circus plan, since Azumarill wasn't listening. Unfortunately for them, though, as they were taking off, Trixie's Pidgey then spotted them and used a peck on the balloon to pop it, causing the cages to all tumble out. Since Ash and the gang were trailing Pidgey, they immediately saw the Meowth balloon go down and ran to it, and were able to retrieve Pikachu and Totodile's cages. However, Team Rocket quickly jumped out of the remains of the Meowth balloon and cornered Azumarill's cage so that Trixie couldn't go up to it. Team Rocket then sent out Arbok and Weezing to further guard Azumarill's cage, but their efforts were proved useless, as Trixie simply commanded her Golduck to use Water Gun, which defeated Weezing and Arbok in one hit. Meanwhile, Ash sent out his Bulbasaur and had it use Razor Leaf to cut open Pikachu and Totodile's cages, and with Totodile free, Ash commanded Totodile to use Water Gun on Team Rocket themselves, knocking them over, so that Bulbasaur was free to use a Vine Whip and retrieve Azumarill's cage, which it then cut open with Razor Leaf. Pikachu then finished Team Rocket off with a Thunderbolt, now that it was free, sending Team Rocket blasting off. With Azumarill happy to be freed from the cage, Brock then whispered some advice to Totodile, telling him to simply confess his feelings to Azumarill instead of trying to impress her, as that always seemed to go wrong for him. So, Totodile did as Brock suggested, and immediately ran up to the Azumarill, as the Azumarill was seemingly running towards him. It seemed like Azumarill had fallen for him after all, maybe after Totodile had given back its pink ribbon, right? Well, unfortunately for Totodile, no, because Azumarill ran right past him, and instead into Golduck's arms. Yeah, remember when I told you to keep in mind how Azumarill seemed nervous that one time? Well, it was nervous because it was around Golduck, and that also explained why it refused to do anything at the circus show since Golduck showed up, since it was nervous that it would fail in front of it. Trixie, followed closely by everyone else, soon realized this, including the Totodile, who was now distraught. But Brock assured him that even though he'd been rejected by Azumarill, love was still worth fighting for, evidencing the fact that he kept trying no matter how many times he got rejected, so Totodile should do the same. Speaking of Brock getting rejected, he tried his best to flirt with Trixie once again, only to get dragged away by Misty for the second time. As Ash and the gang were about to leave for their next destination, Ash called Totodile as he needed to come back to his Pokeball, but he was too busy sitting by a lake. Ash then noticed that Totodile wasn't just sitting doing nothing. It had noticed a female Quagsire on a nearby beach, and was now in love with it, much like it was the Azumarill. So it seems like it had taken Brock's advice quite literally, and had immediately moved on from Azumarill's rejection, and moved on to someone else. Totodile was so enamored that it began to run up to the Quagsire, dancing for it also much like he did for Azumarill. Unfortunately for Totodile, though, things go the same way as he gets rejected yet again, and still refuses to give up, chasing after the Quagsire as it walks away. This forces Ash and the gang to chase after Totodile as well, with Ash trying his best to recall Totodile into his Pokeball, because they really had to get moving. As they chase after it, Misty yells, "Great, just what we need, a Pokemon who acts just like Brock did." But if you ask me, I think that's pretty fucking funny. We can get some pretty good interactions out of this.